Not one but two FA Cup shocks, and time to relax. It's Christmas. Yes, welcome along to this week's Women's Football Chat. My name is Chris Gadsby. I'm here every Thursday at 6 p.m, bringing you the very latest from the third and fourth tiers of women's football here in England. This is the show that is dedicated to the FA Women's National League. And what a weekend of football we had. Not a lot of it, but what we did have was absolutely superb. As I said there in the introduction, not one but two FA Cup shocks. So we're going to change things up ever so slightly and have a look at the FA Cup first before we then have a look at the league results. Much shorter show this week because there are no fixtures to look ahead to. It's just results and the league tables, and then on next week's show between Christmas and New Year we'll have a bit of a look at where all the teams are so far this season as we go into this Christmas break. So without further ado, let's have a look at the FA Cup third round fixtures. These are the games that didn't happen the week they were supposed to, the week before last, because of waterlogged pitches. We'll start there. Of course, there's no result, no information on the goal scorers for it, but fifth tier Luton Town beating Division 1 South West side Keynsham Town, 7th in Division 1 South West by a 0-0. That goal coming in the 83rd minute, if memory serves me right. But fifth tier Luton beating Keynsham Town, and their reward for that is a home tie against Super League side Brighton and Hove Albion, which is going to be a bit of a shock for the Brighton players going to a Luton Town pitch. But superb for Luton Town to be able to get that FA Cup tie, particularly for a fifth tier side, and the money they get with the expected but not guaranteed loss to Brighton will be superb for Luton Town. Ipswich Town, Southern Premier Division side Ipswich Town against Championship side Lewis. Ipswich winning by 3-0, 2-0 up at half time. Again, superb performance from Ipswich. Ruby Doe, Kira Robertson and Lena Williams with the goals for Ipswich Town. Their reward is a game against another Championship side in Charlton Athletic, a second tier side there. So again, they've beaten one, they'll look to beat another. And although it looked like a shock might be on the cards when the opening goal went in, Wolverhampton Wanderers eventually beat Hull City by 4-1. Kind of the expected result there, really. Not helped for Hull when they went down to 10 after just half an hour for a challenge on the Wolves goalkeeper, Rebecca Thomas. So Hull, they took the lead just before half-time. Ellie Tanser in the 43rd minute. Wolves, though, in the second half, were able to show their class somewhat. Amber Hughes in the 57th minute, Anna Morfitt in the 72nd, Sophie Bramford in the 89th, and Beth Merrick in the 95th minute. And that was with, as well, substitute goalkeeper Elise Stocking for Wolves, who also picked up a yellow card in that game. But great performance from the young Wolves goalkeeper. Wolves then, they get Championship side Reading, a trip to Reading in the fourth round of the Cup. So we have one guaranteed FAWNL side, the winner of Forest against Portsmouth. And we've got a couple of other sides who will fancy their chances perhaps against a Championship side. So even though we've got one guaranteed FAWNL team, doesn't mean there will only be one into round 5. But fourth round of the Women's FA Cup on the 14th of January, and as I have done in previous seasons, I will be covering the Women's FA Cup as long as there is an FAWNL side in it, with this of course being an FAWNL centric show. So those then were the results in the FA Cup. Let's now have a look at the results in the league. We'll start in the Northern Premier Division. West Bromwich Albion 1-0 away winners at Derby County. Simran Yamat with the goal for West Brom in that game. Valuable 3 points for them, as we'll see with the league table later on. Newcastle United, very convincing winners over Fylde. 11-3 in the end. A hat-trick for Bridget Galloway, 6th, 57th and 88th minute. Jasmine McQuaid, a hat-trick as well, 8th, 23rd, 25th minute. Georgia Gibson in the 13th minute. Then we go to Charlotte Potts in the 34th, Katie Barker in the 61st and the 65th, and an own goal in the 89th minute means Newcastle win by 11 goals to 3. Goals for AFC Fylde, Lily Murphy 28, Alexandra Taylor 43 and Ginny Lackey 67. So it was 6-2 at half time and it finished 11-3. But fair play to Fylde, bottom of the table. Fylde scoring 3 goals against Newcastle, something that many of the other sides have not been able to do this season. And then a 5-goal thriller between Stourbridge and Huddersfield. Stourbridge coming out on top. Really important 3 points for them as well. Goals in that one to Stourbridge: Esme Moran in the 62nd minute, Jessica Lowe in the 69th and Senna Robinson in the 79th. So Huddersfield had taken the lead through Brittany Sanderson in the 57th minute. 3 then uninterrupted goals from Stourbridge have put them 3-1 up before Kate Mallin for Huddersfield pulled it back to 3-2, but they weren't able to find an equaliser and Stourbridge take the win. What that means in the Northern Premier Division table, the movement is down towards the bottom. Everything towards the top stays the same, with Newcastle winning and nobody else playing games. So West Brom beating Derby, they're upper place. Stourbridge are upper place as well, so it's a 7-point gap now between West Brom and the drop. So that's a 3-game gap between the drop and West Brom. It's now a 3, but you could call it 4 because of the goal difference gap for Stourbridge to the drop zone as well. So with only 11 games to go, to have a 4-game gap to the drop is particularly useful for Stourbridge. 3 games for West Bromwich Albion. Halifax, it's 2 games for them. The goal difference kind of makes it 3 games as well, and Halifax have got plenty of games in hand, so it is starting to look very, very difficult for Huddersfield Town and AFC Fylde to survive in the Northern Premier Division. They need a turnaround in results very, very quickly. But what we're going to do next week is have a more in-depth look at all of the league tables, so we'll go into it in much more detail on next week's show. Southern Premier Division then. Oxford United 8, Billericay Town 0. Very convincing win for Oxford United. Of course, just after I started writing about the season that they didn't really want to have. Lacey J. Liggett in the 11th and the 44th minute. Sarah King in the 24th minute. Jenna Legg in the 45 plus 4th minute. 2 for Zoe Barrett, 69th and 72nd minute. Tommy Oliver in the 85th minute. And Shelley Proven in the 90 plus 2nd minute. 8-0 victory for Oxford over Billericay Town. Important victory for Cardiff City away at Plymouth Argyle. Mia Endicott in the 36th minute had put Plymouth in front, but Grace Harrell just 4 minutes later equalised for the Welsh side. She then put them in front 17 minutes from time, and Cardiff were able to hold on for what could be a crucial 3 points in that fight against relegation. So Cardiff with the 2-1 victory, and hashtag United yet again getting the better of Rugby Borough, as they've done already twice this season. The 3rd time these two have met, twice in the league, once in the cup. Emma Samways in the 14th minute, the only difference in that game between the two sides. What it means is that hashtag go back to the top of the Southern Premier Division table. However, they have played 2 games more than Portsmouth, and they are only 3 points ahead with a vastly inferior goal difference. Rugby Borough, they are now 9 points back with only 1 game in hand. It's starting to look a bit more difficult for them. Ipswich Town, they are 11 points back, but Ipswich Town have got 3 games in hand and a better goal difference than #United, so don't count out Ipswich in this season because they could make a bit of a charge up that table when they play those games in hand. Other movements in the Southern Premier Division, Oxford United up to 6th now, back into the top half with their victory over Billericay Town. They leapfrogged Cheltenham, who didn't play, and Oxford have a couple of games in hand on those around them as well, so they could climb 1, maybe 2 more places with victories in that one. And Cardiff City said how important it was for them to get that victory. They are now 5 points clear of the relegation zone, so it's not quite a 2-game gap. They do have a better goal difference, so a draw somewhere else and they've still got a game in hand over Chatham Town in that relegation zone. So if they could get something from that game, anything from that game, to make it a 6-point gap, it would almost become a 7-point gap. You're talking about a 3-game difference there between Cardiff City and the drop. London Bees still at the bottom of the table, but even if they win their game in hand over Chatham, they would still not gain any further ground on the sides that are safe. So again, similar to the Northern Premier Division, starting to look a little bit difficult for Chatham and London Bees if they don't pick up results quickly. Division 1 Midlands then, and Boldmere St Michael's with a very good home victory against Loughborough Lightning. Unfortunately, they don't have any information on full time as of yet about their 2 goal scorers, but they are able to beat Loughborough Lightning by 2-1. Zinnia Delgin, the only goal for Loughborough Lightning in the 53rd minute. Northampton Town 4-0 away winners at Leafield Athletic. Kimberly Farrow in the 10th and the 60th minute on this one. Jade Bell in the 49th and Alexandra Dix in the 71st made it very comfortable in the end for Northampton, who were up by 1-0 at half time. And Sutton Coldfield Town pile more misery onto Sheffield. An early goal for Jordan Atkin had put them in front. She then doubled her tally for the afternoon, and Sutton Coldfield's advantage before half time in the 39th minute. Chloe Handley 69th minute, 20 minutes from time, making it 3-0 to Sutton Coldfield. Not a huge amount changes in terms of league positions. Northampton up a couple of places. Sporting Cowsett and Solihull drop a place each, but it has kind of closed up now around the top. Loughborough Lightning could have really pulled themselves ahead. If you imagine Loughborough having won that game against Boldmere St Michael's, they'd be on 28, Peterborough would be on 21, there'd be a 7-point gap, and Boldmere St Michael's would be back on 18. But with everything going as it is here, Boldmere St Michael's are now just 4 points off the top. Peterborough United 4 points off the top, but with a game in hand. Northampton up a couple of places. That's only a 6-point gap there as well. Sporting Cows has still got 2 games in hand. They could get themselves up to 22 points if they were to win both of those games in hand. That would put them right into the mix as well. So I think it could easily be in the Division 1 Midlands, any one of 5 really. Still all to play for there. Further down towards the bottom, Sutton Coldfield Town pull further away from the drop. It's an 8-point gap now with a better goal difference, but that, they don't gain any more places with that victory over Sheffield, who are still 4 points off from safety, but they do have a game in hand. And Leafield Athletic still in the relegation zone after their defeat to Northampton. Division 1 North then, not too much to go on here, just a couple of games with some postponements as well. Chorley against Middlesbrough finished a goal each. Saffron Newhouse with a goal for Chorley and Jessica Met with the goal for Middlesbrough. Barnsley, very convincing 6-0 winners over FC United of Manchester. A hat-trick for Emily Pierpont, one for Alanya Millard, and one for Autumn Housley and one for Abby Housecroft. 6-0 for Barnsley. Means that Barnsley go into Christmas back at the top of the Division 1 North table. They've leapfrogged Hull City in what is the only movement the week before Christmas. Hull, of course, playing that FA Cup game against Wolves. So Barnsley 3 points clear at the top going into Christmas. Hull drop into second, but are still very much in it. Those two you feel are starting to pull away from everybody else. They've got games in hand over third and fourth, and fifth is already 9 points back. So particularly if Barnsley and Hull are to win that game in hand, they go like 9 and 6 points clear of everybody else, and you're starting to think maybe it's a bit of a two-horse race, as Division 1 North was last year between Newcastle and Durham Sestra. Towards the bottom of the table then, so Chorley and Middlesbrough. Middlesbrough in third really missed an opportunity there with that draw to Chorley. It's hurt them badly, I feel, in the race to get back to the Northern Premier Division. Chorley in 7th, good point for them, 8 points clear of the relegation zone now. FC United of Manchester with a very bad goal difference, so it's kind of a 4-point gap that they've got to overcome after that 6-0 defeat to Barnsley. They are still bottom of the table. Chester Street Town will take heart from the fact they've got 2 games in hand, and 1 good win will lift them out of the bottom 2. Division 1 South East, then 3 games to talk about in this one. Cambridge City 2, London Seaward 2. Goals here for Rosie Wadhams twice for Cambridge City. 1 each for Megan Burrows and Yelena Karabot coming off the substitutes bench for London Seaward. Cambridge United losing to Worthing by 2 goals to 1. 2 quick-fire goals for Worthing. Shannon Albury in the 62nd minute, Samantha Quayle in the 65th. Alicia Stockton-Down had put Cambridge United in front, if memory serves me right, in that one. But it's Worthing that win by 2 goals to 1. And Norwich City against Cheshire United, a 4-1 victory for Norwich. 1 for Katie Knights, Ellie Smith, Natasha Snelling and Freya Simmons for Norwich. Natasha Smith in the 21st minute, the only goal for Cheshire. What that means for the table, Worthing up to 3rd and just 5 points off the top of the table. Could they do a Stourbridge and go from tier 5 to tier 3 in a couple of seasons? Queen's Park Rangers down to 4 but only 6 points back, so certainly not out of it. Cambridge United after that defeat to Worthing are now 9 points back, remain 9 points back from the top of the table. Norwich of course have closed that gap now. It's only goal difference between themselves and Wimbledon at the top of the Division 1 South East table. That one's going to go down to the wire, I feel. And then down towards the bottom, Actonians are 5 points clear. They, of course, didn't play this weekend. Cheshire United missed the opportunity with that game against Norwich, although it was always going to be tough to pull themselves further away from the drop zone. They are only out of the relegation zone on goal difference. Cambridge City had the same situation. They got a point in their game against London Seaward. It's made it slightly better for them. They are now only in the relegation zone by a couple of goals, and that could easily get overturned. Although the easiest one thing to bear in mind, of course, Cheshire United 2 games in hand over Cambridge City. AFC Sudbury a game in hand over Cambridge City. So still chances for those two to pull away, but it is starting to look, their gap is opening. Particularly London Seaward on 15 points. You feel they're probably too far away. So you're looking at 2 from 4, maybe 2 from 5 if Actonians get pulled into it, going down in Division 1 South East. But I think it is, starting to take a bit of shape that you can guess 1, 2 out of 3 or 4 sides going down into Tier 5. Finally, Division 1 South West, very good afternoon on Sunday if you are an away side. Abingdon United 0, Exeter City 3. Exeter continue their perfect start to the season. Sarah Stacey in the 45th minute, Jenna Markham in the 69th and Connie Pengelly in the 86th. Moneyfields beating Maidenhead United by 4 goals to 0. A brace for Sophie Phelps in the 43rd and the 62nd minute. Gemma Simmons in the 55th and Charlie Wilson-Wilton in the 73rd minute made it relatively comfortable in the end for Moneyfields. And in the battle of the bottom 2, Portishead Town get a crucial 3 points away at Chelsea. Ellie Brinley in the 21st and the 23rd minute, quickfire double for her in the first half. Tamsin Haywood 55 minutes and Laura Barrett 65 minutes made it 4-0 to Portishead. Not the biggest of victories, but 3 points all the same. What we can see that does for the Division 1 South West table. Portishead, the only movers this week. They are up 2 places and out of the relegation zone with that 4-0 win over Chelsea. Chelsea remain at the bottom, yet to score a point this season. Southampton Women's dropped 1 and they are now only 1 point above the bottom 2. However, they do have 3 games in hand over the sides directly above and below them. Torquay have dropped into the relegation zone by a point at the moment. So Southampton Women's, when they play those games in hand, if of course they can get anything from those games in hand, would start to lift themselves away from the drop. Division 1 Southwest, very similar to Division 1 Southeast in the sense that there is that gap. If you look at it now, Maidenhead United, who of course lost to Moneyfields, they're in 4th now, just 8 points away from the top. There's a 6-point gap between Keynsham Town in 7th, Maidenhead United in 8th, and that's a lot to make up, particularly with Keynsham Town having a game in hand as well. So you're looking at relegation out of Division 1 South West, realistically 2 of those current bottom 5. Towards the top, Exeter City have pulled themselves level with AFC Bournemouth, having played their game in hand. Both of those sides still perfect at the start of the Division 1 Southwest season. 27 points out of a possible 27, and if it wasn't for those 2 perfect sides, the likes of Swindon Town, Moneyfields would be right up there as well. But they just have to be there and carrying on going, waiting for the inevitable slip up from Bournemouth or Exeter, or preferably from the Swindon Moneyfields point of view, both of them. Now obviously at some point one or both of those sides will drop points because they haven't played each other yet. We were denied that because of the weather at the start of December, so that's now in February, that game between the 2 sides, or the first of the 2 games between the 2 sides. But it almost feels as though that is going to determine the league. One thing to remember is that this time last year, Cardiff had lost their first game, but they had gone perfect through the first 9 and then lost their 10th. And then it ended up being very tight towards the end, and they only went up on goal difference against Exeter City. It would be devastating for Exeter if they were to lose out on goal difference 2 seasons in a row. But of course, it is in their hands, because if they go and beat Bournemouth, then it is going to be entirely in their hands. So that's all of the results and the tables from the FAWNL as we head into the Christmas break. So, as I said, be back next week with a bit of a closer look at the tables, really. And that is partly down to the fact I've got a series of articles coming out on womensfootballchat.wordpress.com at the moment. Northern Premier Division, Southern Premier Division and Division 1 North will be out when this show goes out. Division 1 Midlands will be tomorrow, and then South East and South West over the weekend, so that all comes out. It was about 7,500 words, took a long time to write, and I thought, shall I put it out in one? And then I thought that's going to be very, very difficult for people to read, so I'm doing it by division. Just looking at all of the stats, not only where the teams rank within their own division, but also within their tier, and is the FAWNL as a whole. So www.womensfootballchat.wordpress.com, the place to go for that, or you can find all the links from my Twitter page at Chris_Gadsby. Yeah, so this is the last women's football chat before Christmas. So if you are celebrating Christmas, I hope you have a very enjoyable festive period. If you aren't celebrating Christmas, I know it can be a difficult period for some people, then I hope you have as good a week as you can. I will be back next Thursday, which is the 28th of December, between Christmas and New Year, having a bit more of a closer look at those tables, see what is likely to happen over the second half of the season, and then back in the new year 2024 looking ahead at those opening fixtures for the new year as we get in towards the interesting, or most interesting, point of the season. We're going to start, of course, when we then get into March, April, looking at the run-ins of some of the sides at the top and the bottom of each division. How far will FAWNL sides go in the Women's FA Cup, and of course quarter-finals, semi-finals, finals of the Cup and Plate competition. So for the penultimate time in 2023. Thank you very much for watching and or listening to this week's Women's Football Chat, and goodbye.